Habari Gani, and welcome to the fifth day of Kwanzaa and the fifth principle of Kwanzaa, or the fifth Nguzo Saba. Well, Nguzo Saba is all seven principles. So the number 5 of the Nguzo Saba is NIA, and NIA means purpose. So it's me again, Tonya Poole, and I still don't have all of my candles in the Kanara. Y'all saw day 1, so y'all already know what the story is behind that. But I do have my beautiful red candle lit for this day, this fifth day of Kwanzaa, which is NIA, which means purpose. And so the official Kwanzaa website further defines NIA as to make our collective vocation the building and developing of our community in order to restore our people to their traditional greatness. Oh my gosh. NIA is purpose. What is your purpose? What is your purpose? Have you ever thought about that? Like, what really is your purpose? Why do you do what you do? Why are you here? You know, what is your purpose? NIA, the beautiful thing about Kwanzaa itself, because it deals with the family and the community, it is not an individual celebration. It's not just about you or just about me. It's not about what's my purpose versus what's your purpose. It's about the community helping you to see your purpose, right? So you don't typically discover your purpose in a vacuum, right? You don't typically discover your purpose on an island isolated by yourself. I mean, that definitely can happen, but at some point there are other people involved. And when it comes to Black folks in general, right? Traditionally, we have been a collective kind of people. You know, we help each other to see each other's purposes. We help each other to see each other's light when we on the up and up. You know what I'm saying? When we loving on each other, right? When Black folks love on each other, it's like a love like none other, right? It truly is. It truly is. And we help each other to find each other's purposes, because we understand that if you don't understand your purpose and you don't understand your greatness, then that impacts me, especially if you're in community with me or relationship with me in any kind of way, and vice versa. Right. And so again, it is to make our collective vocation the building and developing of our community in order to restore our people to their traditional greatness. And I would even argue that, you know, that seed of that traditional greatness has never left us. It has never left us. We are phenomenal. We are phenomenal. One of my favorite things that connects to NIA, which means purpose, is this singer named Sona Jabarte. And I'm going to, hopefully I can remember to put a link in the description box to one of my favorite songs by her. Sona Jabarte, to me, personifies the principle of NIA and, you know, living in her traditional greatness. She comes from a long line of griots. And griot is spelled Griots, for if you want to pluralize it. But the griot, oftentimes that definition of a griot gets very minimized, because people just say a griot is a storyteller, right? And it's like, no, a griot in the tradition in the West African tradition of the griot not only was the storyteller, the griot was the historian. The griot was oftentimes the counselor to the chief or the king or the queen. The griot was the one who made sure that information about the community, about the people, continued and persisted throughout the generations. No, you couldn't just say, I want to be a griot and be one. You had to be born into the line of the griots. And so Sona was born into the line of the griots. And in her tradition, in the Gambia, the griot plays an instrument called, or one of the things that they do is they play an instrument called the kora. And it's like this big, almost like a gourd that has like all these strings that go then way up. And they play that and they sing the stories of their people, you know, or they tell the stories in song. It's very, very sacred. And I'm probably not doing it the best justice right now, because I know a lot of times, you know, in the West, things are so compartmentalized. Like you're either an entertainer, or you're a storyteller, or you're a historian, or you're a counselor, or you or are an advisor, or, you know, what have you. But in traditional African culture, that could be encompassed by one person. And so the music was used to heal as well as it was to use to pass on tradition and to tell the story and to uplift your ancestors. I mean, and to it's deep. It's deep. I ain't gonna do it all here. We got Google, so look it up. So anyway, so Sona, being born in the line of the griot, meant that she could take on some of the rights of a griot. However, because she is a woman, she the playing of the kora was limited to the men of the griot line. So her father, who and her grandfather, who was a profound griot and kora players, they began to teach her when she was very young, from my understanding, from age 3, 4, 5, you know, very young. And she would just sit and listen to them and listen to like her brother as well being trained, because it's something that you're trained in from very young. You know, it's not like, oh, I want to play the piano today, let me take piano lessons, right? No, it's like, you know, that's kind of like a rite of passage for them. So they would sit and allow her to learn. And as she got older and she went to school in, I believe, in Great Britain, and she was being more drawn to that instrument, to the kora. And being in school, I heard an interview where she was doing the research on the griots of Mali and the Gambia and Senegal. And she's seeing her family line, right? But you know how folk be doing, you know, even though her family held that tradition for so long and were the creators of that tradition, in the textbooks, they were not considered the experts. Because, see, this is something I learned as an historian, and I talked about this I mentioned that that's one of the things that I am in the previous video, that this is why it's so important for us to write our own stories, to do our own history, because it's often the ones who write the books about us who are then considered the expert. And I don't understand how you gonna be an expert and you ain't never done it. That's the part I don't understand. You know what I'm saying? Thank you for writing the book, but all right, I'm gonna keep it on. I'm gonna stay focused. Okay, so she was like, all right, no, what I got to do about this, right? So she was drawn back to that instrument. So she had to basically get the permission of her elders and the permission of the griots as a woman of that line to be able to play that instrument professionally. So they blessed her with that. They blessed her with that right to do that. Her music is so phenomenal, man, because for me, when I listen to it, it really, you hear that it helps me to understand that our music as Black people, as African people worldwide, typically is not just entertainment, right? It's not just entertainment. I'm going to talk about that a little bit tomorrow on the principle of Kuumba, but it's deeper than entertainment. It's like, we really connect to something that is unseen, you know, and we're able to interpret that through sound. And though I don't know all of the words that she is using, because in her music, she is speaking her traditional language, but I know what she's saying, right? And that's when you know that somebody is is really using their own ancestral birthright to create. So I'm going to ask you, what ancestral birthright do you have? You know, I don't care what it is. Is it, you know, baking cakes? You know, is it a recipe that your grandma has passed down or has been passed down through your family? Is it a story? You know, even like the story from Alex Haley, Roots, was written based off of just hearing the name Kunta Kinte, you know what I mean? And he did that family research until he could create the whole, you know, basically create the whole story around that and understand that, oh, there's a whole story, right? It's not just folklore, right? So, you know, what traditional greatness do you have that you can add to your purpose? Now, it doesn't mean that all of a sudden you have to pick up an instrument, or all of a sudden you have to become a griot, or all of a sudden you have to become a baker because your grandma made a fabulous pineapple upside down cake that's been passed down through the generations. It just means that how can you take those elements from your tradition, from your ancestry, from those who have come before you, to not create something beautiful, but to actually live your purpose? How can you add it to your purpose? One of the things that I heard Sona say in an interview, she said that there are people born into the line of the griot who are doctors, who are dentists, who are engineers. And guess what? In their tradition, you're just a griot who just happens to be an engineer. You're a dentist who happens to be an engineer, right? So they're not being told that you can't be a dentist, you know, or whatever your profession is, but they add that cultural element to their own profession, which creates a whole nother level of greatness. We have so much greatness within us. Look at what we doing with very limited knowledge, some of us, about how great we are. We're just doing it on default, right? If you go back to the second day when I did Kuji Chagulia, and I talked about the beauty of black hair, and some of us have no intellectual understanding of our history. Like, you know, we don't necessarily know the details, but we're doing it anyway, because it's not about necessarily everything that we know on an intellectual level. It's a soul thing. It's a spiritual thing. You know, when we get into flow, so much greatness just pours out of us. So how much more can pour out of you and out of me, out of us collectively, when we combine it with actually learning even more about who we are and our traditional greatness? Because what will happen is you'll be like, man, I was great all along. I didn't. Now it's official. Now it's certified, right? So yes. So I'm gonna put a link in the description box to the song that I heard by Sona that made me say, I gotta go purchase her albums. You know what I mean? So I will put that in the description box. I hope you take time out to listen to it. Yes, so that is it for our 5th day of Kwanzaa. I will see you tomorrow for our 6th day, which is Kuumba. Peace and love.